Well, welcome to the Building Podcast. Today, we're looking at the image of construction and how we can go about improving it in the eyes of the general public. Specifically, we're going to look at the sharp end of our activities on site. And I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Amit Oberoi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Considerate Constructors Scheme. Amit, welcome to the Building Podcast.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be finally able to align our diaries and partake. So, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, look, we normally start by just asking you to introduce you in your own words and talk around about what the CCS actually does for the industry.
Sure. Yep. I was Amit Oberoi. You can tell from my accent, I grew up in Australia, but I'm a POM, so that always goes down well. But look, I've been in business. I've sort of turned around a lot of companies, been involved in different things, worked in the industry from a psychological behavioural science point of view, where I was tasked to come in and help sort of lend lease on their behavioural journey back in the instant injury free days, and then fell in love with the industry, to be honest. Also been involved with mental health technology companies and so forth. So my background sort of varied, the risk management paired with behavioural sciences. So it sort of lends itself for this high risk industry, which we all know as construction, which is amazing. I'm so passionate about the industry that, it's the only industry in the world where you can come in with little to no skills or have very high skills and basically solve complex problems. So for me, CCS is the perfect vehicle for this independent vehicle for change. That's what we are. I'm sure we'll get into it as we go through, but realistically, we were set up 3 decades ago to improve the image of construction. I mean, Latham report and others before that, visionary people saying, hey, we need to do something. And you know what? We're still trying to do that something. So we've gone full circle, but we're here today and we're looking for the next sort of, 30 years to keep influencing that change through standards, working with the community and looking at the whole ESG dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I mean, it's the industry has had an image problem for as long as I've been in the industry, which is longer than I care to mention. CCS is appointed by both clients and by contractors, isn't it? I mean, who's got the most interest in improving the image of the industry? Is that the clients or the people who are actually delivering the work?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's another dynamic. It's also the community, right? We're all community members. We all live in a community. We're all here to help promote construction. We need those things built. So I would say from a client perspective, they want something built, that's quality, time, cost, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the contractors, it's very tough for them, as we know. But they also want to build things that have a positive legacy as well. And so if you look at it, it's really 3 groups. It's the client, they need an asset to do something. You've got the contractors need to build it so that they've created that legacy and they've achieved their financial and moral and ethical and their whole ESG goals they need to perform. And then you've got the community that needs that asset to operate in a certain way so they can either have, the football stadium, the hospital, the et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's three groups. And that also then leads into the whole fact that if we do it right, then we're going to get more people coming to the industry, right? So it's sort of, it dovetails back in.
Yeah. So most of the appointments that you make, I mean, I know you're generally paid by the contractors, but are most of the appointments you think coming through local authority requirements, or are they coming through clients, private clients insisting on appointment, or is it the contractor saying, hey, we need to be improving the industry image and we're going to put CCS in anyway?
Yeah, it's horses for courses. Obviously, in the Section 106s and even some of the commercial contracts, we've obviously got that strongly devoted right there. But it's also a lot of our contractors. We've got a lot of great contractors that have been partners with us from day one. I was talking to the guys from Mullally. We're talking to some others like Bouygues and so forth that have been there from day one, that really believed in the mission statement of CCS. Even the likes of, Tilbury Douglas and so forth. So those people, I would say, are our insiders that really promote and believe what we're trying to do, and also give us the feedback to say, hey, I think you need to pull up your socks here how can we do things better? So you've got that, you've got the client mandates, but I think the biggest one that's happening now, Mark, is really the community. Since the working from home, they're really getting on board with saying, hey, I don't like the way that looks and smells. Can you tell me why?
Mm.
And going back down through the right chains. And that's also been a driver for us as well now.
I mean, that's great for the clients to know that they've got, an outlet for their local communities to be able to respond to challenges that the sites may have, and probably for your contractors to have a vehicle to be able to explain why some of these challenges are actually being faced. I mean, you always said to me, you can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs, but and there are some activities which are going to make a lot of noise on site, and the communities need to understand that that's how we get to building these fantastic structures that we have. So clearly some benefit to everybody from having that infrastructure in place.
100%. I mean, I think one of the things that we've identified is that construction is noisy works, but it's that pre-preparation to let people know that you have a permit to work outside the extended hours, or you are going to be doing piling for a significant amount of time. I think we assume that the community understands what we're trying to achieve. And the great projects are able to articulate that with the community early on and get their buy-in. And look, you're not going to appease everyone. We're not there to make everybody happy right now, because obviously it affects people differently. But that's the same with the cladding remediation works that are getting done. People are living in darkness while, you've got a whole scaffolded building. But when you tell them you're doing this for their own safety, you're doing this in response to that, and something, then people say, oh, okay, thank you very much to giving me that awareness. And that's what we've got to do more of, that proactive awareness, so that you limit your issues down the track.
Yeah. So you say CCS has been running for 25 years. What are the big changes you've seen over that time?
I guess I call it back to the future. We're sort of going backwards in some regards to go forwards. And I know you and I have had that discussion for a while now. I mean, it was corporate social responsibility. Now it's ESG. Some people are still talking about CSR. I think it's the fact that the community is more aware of mandates. I mean, even with Rachel Reeves, the new government, talking about they need an ESG standard, and how that's going to impact businesses. I think the thing is that a lot of people don't really understand the built environment. And I use the word the built environment because it's not just construction. There's a whole heap of things in the built environment that goes on that has a dramatic impact on carbon footprint, you name it, energy, usage, et cetera, but also that has a very positive impact as well. So we're finding is the ESG parameters, and how do you actually monitor, measure, inspect, test, comply with, when there's so many different standards and so forth going on. So we've done a fair bit of work around this. We've already been collecting for 25 years a lot of those data points on site and verifying. So there was a bit of method of madness when this thing was set up. They did it right in that regard. Again, very visionary in what they were trying to achieve. So we're just trying to take the best of that and then paint a picture that the construction industry looks like this over a 25-year period. And look, there's the good, the bad, the ugly, but generally speaking, people are committed. It is a committed industry. It just gets a bad reputation because you've got some pockets of the industry not doing enough.
So, Amit, you talked there about quite a wide range of sort of audit responsibilities we could be doing. I mean, at the moment, quite a lot of those aren't covered by the remit of CCS. Well, perhaps it's worth just explaining to listeners what you see the purpose and the role of CCS is within the industry.
Yeah, this is something that we've sort of been grappling with for the last sort of, I would say, 5 years, sort of even prior to me coming on board in the last 3, is that, being independent vehicle for change, we don't have constructors or engineering firms as our sort of board members. We don't have that. So we're very independent from that regard. I think CCS was set up to improve the image of construction. I think from 1997 through to sort of the mid 2000s, that the world's progressed. It certainly has progressed. So now what we're talking to people is that, look, let's not reinvent the wheel. We're very good in construction of just keep reinventing the wheel and keep signing up to things and making pledges. Like, how can CCS help you portray that you are providing the things you pledged that you would do as part of your construction project. So if you look at it from a social value perspective, being 20% of the bid value in a sort of, you know, public works agreement, we're able to show that to the client. We're able to say, well, yes, they've collected it and we've verified it. So for us, our code of practice, and we'll probably talk about this now a little bit, it focuses in on the environment, the social aspect, and then obviously the governance elements as well. But it states very clearly, you know, show me what you've done in response to the energy consumption. Show, you know, and we then get those verification points. So it's for us to be more hands-on and helping people determine that, so you don't have to do it again. But also the fact is we're independent. So if the client comes to us, we can easily say, no, they've done that because we've seen that. So that's the help that we can provide. The other part to it, which is really critical, is helping contractors attract, retain, and spread the message positively into the community about construction. Because when I interviewed 1,000 workers, they were so proud, which made me sad, that they weren't going to recommend their family to construction. They were proud about the fact that their children were going to be a doctor, police officer, firefighter, all these other things. And I said, well, why aren't you promoting their own? They said, look, we've been treated poorly over the years. You know, we sacrificed our life. We worked so hard. And it's like, that was very sad to hear. So obviously we've got a lot of work to do, and we've embarked on this comic book now, and we've embarked on other things. But I keep going back to the same thing. Contractors are here to build amazing infrastructure. They're not community organizations. We've got to support that, because as I've said to some of the people you know and I know, where you need your staff, yes, to engage with the community, but they're not community officers. They're building construction projects. And I think we've gone too far sometimes, and that's where CCS can come in and help. And that'll help with productivity as well, because we can help provide things rather than reinvent the wheel and spending time and effort and money trying to do that piece and then just do a patchwork quilt type. Why can't we come and support? So that's the conversation where we're going, what we're currently doing. And I think that's starting to work better. But look, you know, this is just a start. There's a long way to go. So we're just working through those paradigms right now.
So I mean, that sounds like, Amit, you're going to try and leave the constructors to do the constructing, and for you to tell them what they need to be doing to comply with their ESG requirements, and then ensuring that communication out to community and clients is effective, and using that independence to be able to validate exactly what's going on, and which is clearly a useful conduit to be able to pass that communication responsibility back to somebody else.
Correct.
So Amit, what's the how are we going to see the service that you're going to provide developing over the next few years, and where are you going to spend your resources to further develop that service?
Well, look, we're just on the start of the journey. I mean, we've already got the code that's getting the points and the indicators on the ground, which you know, it only modifies very slightly to be updated with the current legislative changes and the frameworks we're working with. But what we'll do is we're going to start running some workshops over the course of 2025 to get a better understanding and a greater understanding from the contractors. What is the art of the possible from their side? What is the art of the possible from the clients? Even going further up to designers. We've spoke to many designers saying, look, you know, we're in the process of designing a building that looks a certain way, but what's the possibility of that having the impact across, you know, the environment, the social aspects, and then who's actually going to check that was built to those specifications and so forth like that. Now, whilst there are other agencies that do many of these other aspects, we're looking to tie into them as well, so that we are central conduit. We don't want to do the role of other organisations, but we know our role is to be the glue, so to speak, and bring people together. So we're all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. And so, to be honest with you, Mark, that's a long process. We've got a bit of a roadmap. We're looking at how can we bring people together to be unified, because I think at the moment there's a lot of cherry picking on things that people want to do.
Yeah.
And so we were saying, well, let's not cherry pick the things that look great or are sexy or topical. Let's work out who owns that space and what's your part to play in this pie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's, it's quite a challenge going forward, isn't it? I mean, the UK construction is quite an expensive place in the world to do business. and we have to be very careful about just layering more costs onto the operations we carry out. I mean, here, quite a challenging question for you. I mean, how do you define the value, or how do you how do you defer, how do you demonstrate the cost, or the value to the cost you impose? Where's that balance lie? Because clearly, if you charge too much and become all things to all people, you're going to lose business, and CCS is going to dwindle. But if you get it right, it's going to thrive.
100%. I don't think it's about us raising costs at all. I think it's for us to provide a better service,
right,
and actually show people that what they're currently doing, they have underestimated a lot of the work they've previously undertaken. So we've already collected millions of data points on that whole shift into the ESG debate, but they've done nothing with it. So for us to make that more robust, our code, that's easy. That's on us. That's not a cost to anyone. We do that. That's what we have to do to support the industry. But the value comes in, Mark, when you go back to the client and say, this was stamped by CCS, that we did the work that we said we were going to do for the 20% in that contract value. That's the value. So it's not for us to actually raise any rates or raise anything or charge more or charge an extra fee. It's for us to show that we can provide that back to your client, back to even if you're getting green funding, to the banks, financial institutions, and then overall to the government as well, to say, hey, the construction industry looks like this, actually. This is the picture of what they're doing, what they've committed to. That's the value. Now, being part of that is what we need to work out. How do we get the whole industry across those three critical elements to be bought in to this? Because there'll be other people that'll pay a picture to this and looking at what does that unification, I think that's the right word, this unification look like to get ESG sorted, put back to where it needs to be, to paint the right picture that we're actually doing the things we said we're going to do in the right way. And that for us is not really about a money grab. That's not really for us about, taking something off someone. It's about us showing the people and the companies that, you know what, how does the client trust that's coming from you? They want it independent verified. It's like having a QS on site checking that those things were delivered, and that was about. We're doing the exact same thing, but for the ESG.
So I mean, Amit, it sounds to me you're and let's put it broadly, as restoring trust in the industry. And trust is something I think in a lot of these podcasts, people recognize that trust in the industry somehow has been forsaken. We're now relying on contracts, we're relying on all sorts of things because the level of trust that we have between people it has dwindled. And if you can put the trust back into it, then clearly we've got a lot of opportunity going forward. Do you see a role for technology in the work you're doing at the moment? I mean, there's quite a lot of work being done on carbon capture, or putting carbon into technology and being able to simplify how we measure it and how we report on it. Is that the sort of thing going to be looking at you?
Yeah, 100%. We've brought an individual in who's a chief technology officer who's been going out now talking to organisations to get an understanding of what they're currently doing. I mean, look, we're in 2024, not 2004. Things have moved on rapidly, right? And the industry, we thought BIM was going to be the be all to everything, and it's for a better term, it started that conversation. We're definitely looking at technology. I mean, everyone's got one of these, smartphones in your pocket. There's so much you can do with that. But it's, again, we need to understand, what do we actually want to capture?
Yep.
How do we want those capture methods being illustrated? And also then don't make it too scientific, right? We've got to keep it for layman's terms. People can understand it and know their obligations. And so we're working through that process right now. And I'm very excited about that, actually, because I think technology can help us move 5 years in one year. So that's the next phase, I would say, of the new frontier that we're working on.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, for that technology to work, we need a degree of confidence in the standardization about how we actually measure these things. So understanding Rachel Reeves calling for a standard for ESG, I get it. I'm also aware of you have the same challenges around some of the carbon measurements. is CCS driving standardization in these areas that you're looking to audit?
Yeah, we're at the early stages. One of the things that really, I think, got me thinking about it is the aggregation of what we currently got. We've got way too many standards, measures. It's pretty wild. It sort of reminds me of the early days of the ISO, when we had hundreds of ISOs of different things, and then we had PAS, and we had 5-star, we had green, we had all these different things. So what we're looking at is, what is the aggregation? What are the common threads? And then what would be the industry standard if we looked at that? So I think that conversation will come at some point next year. But at the moment, we've got a list of 100 different measurement scales which don't interrelate. It's just been devised by someone in a lab. Hey, you're gonna accept this. So we need to work on that. And I think that will be an easier solve once we have the right people in the room. At the moment, so we don't want to. We're not coming up with the idea ourselves. We've just seen it's a problem. I'm a bit of a problem solver. Well, I think I am anyway. I try to be. And so what we're trying to do is get the conversation started now, get the right people in the room, work together and say, right, what can we accept? What actually makes sense? What are we actually doing that we can then influence and then take that? Because I always think it's better that you work internally in the industry than have someone external tell you what you need to do. And we're going to be over-regulated for the sake of over-regulation. So that's where the conversation started, and we're only in the early days.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So if you're a contractor, how can you influence the way those conversations are going? I mean, if you're effectively a user of your service, how can you get engaged to get that maximum value out? Because you clearly need to be measuring the right things in the right way if they're going to provide the service for you to be able to audit.
Yeah, we'll be doing a call out to develop a working group. So we'll facilitate that, and then we'll have someone independently chair that group, and we'll have key targets and milestones that we need to hit in order to do that. And everyone, whoever is appointed or wants to be part of that, can join, and we'll make it very clear what we're trying to achieve. So the vision's set. We know what we've got to do. We're on the journey now, and we're basically going downhill. So it's momentum is going very fast. So we're not going uphill. We're going down very fast, and we're hoping that we're giving ourselves a target sort of middle of the year before summer to have something, from the industry side that would look a certain way and feel. But obviously, we'll be guided by the people that are in the room. We'll be guided by people that we're using periphery. We're using a lot of external stakeholders in terms of professionals that have worked in this space in other industries that are more progressed, to tell us the pitfalls. I think we've got to know what the pitfalls are as well. As someone said to me the other day, you can't eat the entire elephant. You've got to start from the toenail and make your way up. So we're taking that process at hand.
So you're aiming for sort of the middle of next year to have a sort of a list of areas to look at, or a list of priorities for CCS to be addressing. Is that the plan?
Yeah, correct. I'm thinking we're just taking a bit of a nuanced approach and just step it out. We don't want to run before we can sort of walk on this. But we'll be guided by the right influences, and then work it through. Because I think what happens is everyone says, "Oh, this is a great idea." They rush trying to solve the problem, and then they find out that they've missed all the key steps. So we want to make sure that the key steps have been adhered to, so that this is built on a strong foundation, not just rushed out to be first to market.
So, I mean, one of the challenges in that position is that you need to have a reasonable vision about how the industry is going to change over the next, say, 5 years. And our industry is very good at looking backwards and saying this is how we've always done things. But I think with the rise of technology and green and ESG as well, I suspect you're in a very much a changing market, and we've got 5 years of labour ahead of us, where I suspect ESG is going to get even greater leverage in our procurement. Do you think you've got the vision to see that? Do you think you've got the people around CCS to make that happen? Or are you picking that from the industry?
Well, I mean, I'll be straight up, and I've always been straight. I think we're a facilitator, Mark.
Right.
It's not for us to dictate terms. I think that would be very, very arrogant of us to do that. for me, I'm really the reason why I wanted to be on your podcast. It's a bit of a call to arms to people that are listening to this today to say, hey, I want to join up with Amit and the merry band here of people that want to disrupt a little bit and actually do something that's going to be another legacy for 30 years. So I look at CCS, came to a point, amazing. Now, what's our next point going to be? And I've been challenged by some of our mutual colleagues in the industry that we need to start today, right? So this is a call to arms for anyone who's listening to the podcast. Please, you know where my details are. Hit me up. I'd love for you to be part of this because we need a visionary group of people that are thinking of beyond themselves and thinking about the industry more broadly and have got the skill sets to help us shape the future, because that's the only way this is going to be a success, right? We need the right people coming in that care passionately about it, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough thing to achieve. But once we can look back, I mean, the industry loves to look back. Let's look back in 30 years and say, hey, we all got together. We knew there was a problem and we came up with something, and then someone else can be the custodian at that point. Hopefully we're off retired and, you know.
Aaron, I wish you every success with it, because I think one of the issues this industry struggled with is that vision. I think if we had a vision that people could buy into, then we could start working back to. And the classic one is sustainability. You know, there are many people saying that by the end of the decade, every business will be charged, for their carbon they're using or passing on. And yet that's not a uniform position that people can start working back from to say, today we need to be aware of what we're doing. So I think absolutely you're spot on in making sure this is a visionary board that you that you can use, and picking the best brains from the industry. So I hope your call to arms is very successful.
I'm sure it is, Mark. I've seen the caliber of your previous people on the podcast and all your audience. So I appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with you today.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So, I mean, staying with CCS then, there's sometimes I get asked the question, is CCS for every site? You know, is there a de minimis site that we ought to be looking at? And so, as you'll know, the vast majority of businesses in the industry are SMEs or even micros. Is there any way we can your organisation can support those smaller businesses and smaller sites more effectively?
Yeah, I think this is probably the best question you've asked, because I was under the illusion sort of when I first came over UK 2011. I'll never forget. When my eyes were brighter and I had more hair on my head, the CCS was only top end of town. But as now that I'm internal, I've realised that actually we do a lot in the small to medium enterprise businesses. They're the ones that are looking to be part of CCS and grow, because they've seen the success of what happened with the tier ones, right? So I think we do a lot in that space, and we'll do more, and we love that, because the way the code is flexed, it can help anyone from a small upgrade, basement upgrade, all the way through to a more established joint venture project such as HS2 and so forth. So we do a lot in that space, but I think what it is it's the commitment more so. When you're committing to CCS, and this is what people don't realize, when you're committing to CCS, you're actually committing to being part of a community that actually wants to improve. That's the commitment. We're just coming out and assessing you and doing those bits. That's great, but really you're making a commitment. You're saying to your neighbors and everyone else, hey, I want to be part of that group because I believe in that vision. And I think that's over the sort of past, in the past sort of 5 years, it was a bit lost. And I want to bring that back, because I think the guys and girls work really hard in the industry. We're rewarded and recognising that. We had a successful, National Site Awards. We recognise the sites that are doing the work. Now on the 20th of November, we've got the gala event where we're recognising individuals and companies, and we call companies to please come and nominate, come to the event. However, when you're part of CCS, you're part of something bigger, and you've got the support, and we've got all of those mechanisms of 30 odd years to help you and support you and work with you. And we've got a great team here. We're really committed to supporting people. And I think that gets lost. I think people just think about, it's just having a sign on your door, but it's actually more than that. And I think that's a great question you asked me.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I recall from running a construction company is the cultural change that can put on, and I do worry that has been lost in the CCS sort of approach, more recent approach. I'm glad you spotted that cultural change that can happen within those sites. We're all passionate people about building, and actually being able to demonstrate how we can influence the community is really important. But I wondered whether do you have any information around or any sort of view about the cultural difference between those within your schemes and those who are without your schemes? Is there a difference you can point to on those?
Yeah, well, another great question. Wow, I'll tell you, you're firing on Friday. I mean, you're talking about the cultural piece. I'm glad that we're addressing it because that's my background. So if it wasn't, we'd be in trouble. But we're actually doing a piece of work with Scape frameworks to look at people that have organisations that have been involved, the individuals, that those sites are safer. Those sites have less community breaches. They have less issues with other control bodies and so forth. So we're doing a piece of work on that as well. And we're also looking at one of the things that I'm very keen on is the whole health debate at the moment. There's a lot of talk around that. So we're doing a lot we've got occupational health providers going out, talking to people and then the other element that's really critical is financial literacy. So we've put on some financial people to go out to talk to sites to say, hey, do you know that you're actually earning decent money? You can actually do this with it. You need to be able to manage it. So we're doing all these things to help people understand that the culture of construction is not just what it used to be. It's not grubby work. It's actually decent work. You're achieving something bigger than yourself. So coming back to your question is we're doing a study to identify being with CCS, is it a happier, healthier, safer, more productive workplace? That's what we're working on now as a backward sort of in the back of the scenes type project. And it's been interesting because we've had a few people really keen on working with us on this because this could really shine the light that construction isn't what people think it is. It's actually more progressed than what we all think at times. So I'm really excited about that project.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating about mental health. I mean, we still are one of the worst industries for mental health, partly due to the fragmented nature of the industry, and partly due probably to the size of businesses that we've got. With most businesses don't have the support networks in place. So, are you providing sort of mental health first aiders as part of your team going around doing audit? Is that the plan, or what?
Yeah, I got my views on mental health first aid, and I'm not going to bore you because that started from Australia and it's sort of morphed into something that's not. It's okay, but it's not really what it was designed for. What we're actually doing is finding out what is the causation for people to be unwell. It still worries me as a father as well, and I've got children that I want to come into the industry, is that we don't understand the causation of why people get so ill, to the fact that people then are having suicidal thoughts, right? Is it because they're not getting enough money? Is it because of substance misuse or whatever it is? So what we're doing with that, Mark, is actually finding out what are the causation factors, because we know it's not one. This is not a linear thing.
No.
So we're trying to work out, is it because you're lonely, you're away from home, you're traveling vast distances, you've got fatigue, you're not eating well. And we've hired an ambassador, Kate Cook, who was one of the first to set up the Harley Street clinics. She did a lot of work on the Olympics with, feeding people porridge and so forth in the morning and all these sorts of things. So we've got people that are actually skilled and versed in their, specialist area to come into our industry to actually have conversations to understand why. And it's not saying here's the solution straight away. It's like let's find out what it is. And if people if they're flagged and they need the help right then and there, they'll give them the help. But it's about, let's have a candid conversation, anonymized, done in a safe way to find out what is going on, because you know what it is. Us men are not the best with our feelings.
Okay.
We won't talk about it. We'll just keep, going on. But, when you hear some of the feedback we're getting saying, hey, I wasn't expecting to have this conversation. I'm so glad I had that conversation today. I didn't realize when my blood sugar drops, that's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. But when did you last eat properly?
Yeah.
Things like that. So that could be one causation. There's a whole heap of things that are going on. So that's a passion project of my own.
Mhm.
But I just said to anyone, if you want to be partner up with us, great. If you don't, we'll do it. Because I think it's time for action now. We talk a lot about these things, and I'm just sort of saying, well, let's get this happening. Let's make the change, and hopefully, again, people listening to this podcast today, call to arms. If you want to be involved, if you've got sites that you want us to come to, it's done in a very professional manner. The guys and girls going out are very well versed, and they're actually fun to be around. It's not like the old.
Well, they need to be. I mean, it's one of the things I on other conversations around mental health, particularly. I worry it's actually the structure of the industry is driving the challenges on mental health. We're now not in control of so much of what we come on site to do, that we have to have eyes in the back of our head, and we have to be experts at everything, and just being able to talk to people and collaborate with people who we wouldn't normally is often the best way of doing it. And great that you've got people out there who are at least have got eyes and ears to be able to do that.
We're trying to demystify. I mean, we chuckle about it, but the stereotypes of having someone in a little, porter cabin and you coming in and saying, right, you must like major style, those days are well and truly gone. But that's still the stereotype. Or if I tell someone that means I'm weak, no, you're not. We're here to help. I tell people my story all the time. My father-in-law, he committed suicide, and I felt absolutely powerless as being someone from the psychology field. Talk to him. Obviously, he wasn't living in the same country, so I didn't have oversight. But still, I blamed myself for many years, thinking, "Geez, I couldn't hear the cry for help."
Yeah.
And so it comes. People don't realise that, and I've had friends that I played, sport with in Australia that commit suicide. So I've seen when you miss the signs because you're caught up in your own life. So I thought, right, we've got to do something to understand that. And that's one of the critical areas. So I'm really excited that hopefully we'll be able to shine a light here and actually, find out what is really happening.
Yeah, well, Amit, it's taking the position you have in CCS as the honest broker and independent to everybody else to be able to provide that service. And it's a great asset to be able to take that forward. And we've had a great canter through CCS. Is there anything that, if I was to ask you sort of the three things that you would like contractors or clients to take note of and to benefit from the scheme? Because, I do worry that, as you said earlier, sometimes it can be a tick box exercise saying, well, we're just going to tick this and deal with it. There's a lot of value that you have within CCS. How do we give us three examples of how we get the best out of you?
I would say, I'm glad you said tick box. I'd say the first one is we're not going to be a tick box.
Good.
Anymore. So if that's what people have felt, well, yeah, sorry, we let you down. Won't be a tick box. Certainly never intended to be a tick box, so it won't be.
It's a tick box to appoint you. It comes on the specification.
Yep. I know that.
Pay the fee and move on.
Yeah. I think people have greater access to us. We're going to be more prominent. We're there, right? We were set up for the industry to be, if you want to use the word, the independent vehicle for change. That's what we are. That's what we do. And we are going to be more, I think, forthright in supporting our partners, members, and anyone affiliated with us to actually showcase more. And we've started that. We've done a video first series where we're doing everything to illustrate the positive aspects of construction, because, the biggest thing with community now, everyone's using TikTok and all these social media forms. It's video first works. I think the industry, and I was talking to some other leaders this week, is that industry has a lot of self-harm by not promoting themselves in the right light. So why can't you come to us? We're independent. We're not going to focus on one company. We're going to focus on the industry. Who's the best and best? And the other thing is as well, vote with your feet. Come to the industry awards. If you've got a great site team or a great site manager or a great CEO or MD or a great QS in your team or whoever it is, we'll put them up for an award. Let our team know. We'll come out and do those interviews. The judging panel will view it, and they'll be there. So tell us that you're performing as well. Don't sit back and say, "Oh, well, I don't want to be involved," because be proactive. Tell us. We're open for ears. The doors are open. So we're all keen. So please let me know. And, you get my details. I'll be more than happy to come and meet with any contractor. I've done that before. I just want to hear from the people that are actually out there that are committed and keen, that are frustrated as well, Mark.
Yeah, no, and I can, speaking from experience, we put a project manager up for one of your awards many years ago. He got the regional award, and he was, his head was enormous. He was so proud of having achieved it because it ticked his values aligned with what CCS was promoting, and to be recognised was a huge achievement for him, huge accolade. It's been a great canter through. CCS, there's clearly plenty going on in your organisation, and clearly plenty happening, and plenty of plans as well. I really look forward to hearing what you believe the future holds on the sort of things that an independent auditor can do around our sites. If you can restore the trust within the industry and do your bit for that, then I think the work you're doing will be absolutely fabulous. But thank you very much for your time today, and look forward to seeing the results.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. Take care.